The National Environment Agency (NEA) has seized more than 1 container of banned insecticides products in the Gambia. African Foreign Affairs ministers and head of delegations converged in Addis Ababa to discuss the continent's security-related matters. And President Adama Barrow recently presided over the swearing ceremony of the newly appointed Secretary to Cabinet and 2 other appointees. Well, this and more coming your way on To World Today. Hello, this is Eyeafrica TV and you are watching the World Today News Bulletin coming to you live from our studios in Banjul. Many thanks for joining us. I am Amadou Kante and now the news in detail, and we begin with environment-related matters because the National Environment Agency (NEA) during its latest inspection routine of the local markets on the sale of banned or expired items seized over a container of banned insecticides products, including the famous Sniper. Now, in May 2022, Sniper pesticide usage, importation, and stockpiling and distribution were banned in the Gambia. Now, this comes when some circulating WhatsApp audios claim that some vendors were using these products meant to kill bed bugs and cockroaches to preserve their smoke feast. As our reporter, Yahya Jammeh, reports, despite the imposed ban, some people are still continue to buy and sell these banned products in the country.
The team inspection of the National Environment Agency embarked on a massive raiding of insecticides and pesticides, and including the famously banned Sniper. The said products or chemicals banned were confiscated from 47 vendors in Brikama, Fajikunda, Tanje, Banjul, Sarakunda, Batakunku, Wellingara, and other localities and markets respectively. The illegal product confiscated from 47 vendors include the infamous Sniper, and others come with string names like Mer de Fayala, Putin, and many more.
The 3 days exercise actually was very successful in a sense that we are able to really reveal or be able to confiscate a lot of chemicals or a lot of products that will feel not registered. They are not within our register, the product that's supposed to be used in the country. And also the Sniper plan. So you realize that the enforcement took at least illegally selling pesticides that are illegally importing pesticides, as well as those illegally manufacturing or formulating them.
The Executive Director of the National Environment Agency, Dr. Dawda Baji, said some individuals are making these illegal chemicals in their backyards and selling it to people.
Some people are even taking the law into their own hands to sit in their corners of their houses and mix chemicals and then sell it to people. And I think that is a dangerous thing, because those chemicals don't even have labels. They don't know even what are the consequences of those, what is there. So it can kill bugs, it can kill bed bugs, it can kill cockroach. That's what they always tell you. It can kill anything, which means it's also killing you in the process. Because anything that is killing includes you who is using it also as well.
Mr. Baji urges people to remain vigilant and refrain from buying or selling these chemicals. He said people should be more conscious of the dangers to one's health than the gains an individual is making by selling it.
There may be some of this market, we have to be very careful about what the people who are really selling this illegal material there. And I think we are the one who are buying it, because we bought it. We are the one. If there is a market, there are always going to be if there is a buyer, there are always going to be a seller. And this is the thing that we have to look at this thing. You have to look at how this thing is affecting us, not our own interests as individuals.
The agency said some of the chemicals are not labeled at all, while others are not written in English. In total, 328 containers of liquid unknown pesticides, 677 packets of unknown pesticides, and 12 liters of unknown pesticides, as well as 21 kilograms of powdered pesticides were confiscated. The National Environment Agency officials warned that anyone apprehended with these products shall be prosecuted, and if found wanting, they are exposed to a fine ranging from $50,000 to $150,000 or a jail term of 2 years. Reporting for Eyeafrica News, I am Yahya Jammeh.
Moving on, now the prevailing insecurity situation in Africa dominated the recent African Union Executive Council meeting in the Ethiopian capital, Addis Ababa, attended by Minister of Foreign Affairs and head of delegations from the member states of the African Union. The leaders also discussed the unconstitutional change of governments in several African countries. Now, during the summit, the leaders were, of course, able to approve major decisions on multi-sectoral related issues. Let's have more details of that in this report.
The foreign and international affairs ministers of African Union member nations are deliberating on crucial matters of the continent. So far, it's the peace and security situation in Africa that is dominating their 2 days of talks. Sources say rampant unconstitutional changes of government across the continent are being discussed. 4 member states, Sudan, Mali, Guinea and Burkina Faso, have been sanctioned by the continental body following military coups and suspended from the Union. The African Union Executive Council is also discussing ways of preventing terrorism and extremism as well as ethnic-based violence in Africa. But it's not all gloomy, for the continent has managed to provide African solutions for some African problems. A case in point is the recent peace broker in Ethiopia. Here, the African Union managed to help the federal government and the rebels in the north to strike a peace deal which helped to stop a 2-year war in the Eastern African nation. Over the weekend, the 36th African Union Heads of State Summit will be staged. Already leaders are arriving in the host city, Addis Ababa. The summit is expected to approve key decisions over multifaceted areas.
African leaders meet to discuss the issue of security and peace in the African continent, from the Ethiopian capital, of course, Addis Ababa. Now, moving on, following the devastating 7.8 earthquake that struck Turkey and Syria, which resulted to the death of over 40,000 people, there has been some miraculous survivors in Turkey after more than 72 hours under the rubble. Now, as featured in this report, a 25-year-old female teacher and 2 other survivors narrated their ordeal and lack of hope for the future after being severely affected. Health facilities in the Asian country are also struggling to accommodate the thousands of people injured by the dreadful earthquake. Let's have more details of that in this report.
Another miracle after more than a week of sadness and loss in Turkey. A woman, 25-year-old teacher, extracted from the earthquake rubble in Hatay after 211 hours. Few believed many would survive past 72 hours, but some have been defying the odds.
Hastanemiz yaşadığımız büyük felaketin mevcut hava koşulları.
Our hospital has become the epicenter of the great disaster, thanks to the current weather conditions, the cold weather, the fact that these rescue teams still have high hopes, and the whole nation is striving to save another living thing. Our hopes are still not exhausted.
Cold weather conditions can reduce blood flow and lessen heat loss. Those who manage to survive are given trauma care on scene and then are transferred to hospitals. According to doctors, many survivors have broken bones, tissue loss, and amputations. When the ceiling collapsed above this 22-year-old victim, it crushed both of her ankles and hands.
We don't know what to do after we get out of the hospital. Our house is gone. It's completely over.
A few rooms over, teacher Saray Yavuz and her husband Erdal are thankful to be alive.
Our students helped us. They put themselves at risk. They made a space for us to breathe. Then I crawled out of that little space. I wanted to make room for my husband. Thank goodness he came out too.
Hospitals all across Turkey have been filling up with victims of this horrific earthquake. 4,000 alone are here at Adana City Hospital, 200 of which are children. Doctors say without any identification, 20% of these children will have to take DNA tests so they can identify their families.
According to President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, more than 8,000 people have been pulled out alive from the tens of thousands of buildings destroyed by the earthquakes. All the motivation needed for rescue teams to continue their life-saving work.
Yes, rescue operations continue both in Turkey and Syria amidst the devastating earthquake that struck the two countries, leaving many people injured and others also losing their lives. Now back to matters here in the African continent, because amid the growing violence in the eastern part of the Democratic Republic of Congo, Uganda is set to deploy more troops to the Eastern African nation to join forces with the country's army to confront the resistance M23 rebel. Now, the latest move comes after regional leaders agreed to help support the fight against the rebel groups in DRC, but Rwanda's participation was, however, rejected by the Congolese authorities of allegation that Rwanda is backing the M23 rebels. Despite a call for a ceasefire, fighting has been escalating between the government forces and M23 rebels in the eastern part of the country, leaving many in a dire situation. Here's more details of that in this report.
Uganda is assembling troops ready to take up positions in eastern DR Congo. Over 700 soldiers will be stationed south of the city of Beni in the North Kivu province.
We have already sent an advance party which is already in Goma to harmonize a few things with the KDF, Kenya Defense Forces, which is already there, and other administrative arrangements. Our troops are ready. We are just handling a few administrative things, and soon we shall be in DRC.
Ugandan troops will make up part of the East African regional forces that will be fighting alongside DR Congo forces and the UN peacekeepers. Kenyan troops were the first to deploy and are stationed in Goma, while the DRC has rejected suggestions that Rwanda takes part over allegations it backed the M23 rebels, but Rwanda denies the claims. Uganda already has troops fighting the Allied Democratic Forces, or ADF, under an agreement with the DRC government. The ADF is a Ugandan rebel group with bases in the eastern DRC. Experts warn Uganda and Rwanda's involvement in the conflict will complicate issues.
There are rebel groups from Uganda in Congo and rebel groups from Rwanda who are also operating in Eastern Congo. So Uganda and Rwanda have strategic political interests in Eastern Congo, and they would want to have some strategic connections and links with some of those ethnic groups in Congo through whom they can now fight their rebel groups.
The deployment follows a decision by regional heads of state to help support the fight against rebel groups in DR Congo. Defense forces from the region have earmarked areas that the M23 have withdrawn from as positions to be taken over by the East African forces. Part of their duties will be protecting civilians and internally displaced persons. Over 130 armed groups are based in Eastern DR Congo and have destabilized the mineral-rich country for decades. Recent clashes between the government forces and M23 rebels have intensified despite a call for a ceasefire and withdrawal by regional leaders. Regional leaders have now given immediate timelines for the deployment of the force with the hope of finding lasting peace and stability in the DRC.
And that security-related report is coming from the Ugandan capital, Kampala. You are watching the World Today News Bulletin on Eyeafrica TV, coming to you live from our studios in Banjul. And from that report here, we now take a break and come back shortly.
The Gambia will celebrate 58 years of independence on 18th of February 2023 on the theme Democracy, a Recipe for Peace and Development. His Excellency the President of the Republic, Adama Barrow, will witness the march past and parade of the security forces and students at a ceremony to be held at the Makati Square in Banjul on Saturday, 18th February. As part of the celebrations, the organizing committee is organizing a public forum on the theme Democracy, a Recipe for Peace and Development. The event, which will take place at the Sauda Kairaba Jawara International Conference Center in Bijilo on Thursday, 16th of February, will bring together representatives from various walks of life to reflect, debate, and have conversations about how we can strengthen our democracy to ensure peace and growth. The time is now to embrace the bond that unites us as Gambians.
Welcome back. This is Eyeafrica TV and you are watching the World Today News Bulletin. Once again coming to you live from our studios in Banjul, and let's now look at the rest of the stories. Now, the newly appointed Secretary to Cabinet, Yahya Jammeh, Permanent Secretary of the Public Service Ministry, Aliu Lum, and Mot Sise as the new Auditor General of the National Audit Office, respectively, were Wednesday sworn in at the State House in Banjul at a ceremony presided over by President Adama Barrow. Moses Mendy has more details of that in this report.
The Gambian leader acted on powers vested in him under Section 173, Subsection 4 of the 1997 Constitution of the Gambia to appoint the trio to serve in various portfolios in his new cabinet. President Adama Barrow, along with his cabinet members, witnessed the swearing-in ceremony of the three new appointees at the State House in Banjul. The appointees took the traditional prescribed oath of allegiance, oath of due execution of office, and oath of secrecy. Speaking on behalf of the appointees, the new Secretary General to the Cabinet, Yahya Jammeh, expressed delight and gratitude for the appointment, adding that he and his fellow appointees have accepted the challenges that lay ahead.
I humbly stand before you this morning to deeply touched and inspired by your encouragement by appointing us in these respective positions. With sincere gratitude for the confident response on us, on answering resolve to honor the trust, and we are determined and humbly wish to accept the challenges ahead. Your Excellency and government has astutely guided the government and the people of the Gambia to the land of hope, and we also want to build on those guidelines for the betterment of our people. Your Excellency have opened the opportunities and given us the privilege. We are deeply honored. We are aware that we have to deliver every day, step by step, program by program, to meet the expectations. I wish to assure Your Excellency and the Cabinet Ministers that we, people of the Gambia, we will work diligently to materialize our responsibilities.
Mr. Njai also highlighted the need to work collectively, transparently, and honestly, because the minor successes are what translates into huge ones. The new additions will be expected to help enhance the government's much-needed development trajectory. For Eyeafrica News, I am Moses Imen.
And from the report there by Moses Imendi, on to our final story now. Sudan is currently struggling to contain the spreading dengue fever in the country amid the country's fragile health response mechanism. Now, health workers are urging authorities to equip health facilities and isolation centers, as well as deploy mass awareness campaigns on the mosquito-borne disease. While the government provides treatment opportunity in some areas, citizens are also helping to educate the masses. Now, let's have more details of that in this report.
Interventions to stop the spread of dengue fever in Sudan have been hampered by weaknesses in the nation's health system. Doctors have also raised concerns over a deteriorating economic situation in the country that could limit funding towards efforts. Health workers are calling on the Ministry of Health to equip hospital and isolation centers coupled with mass education on the mosquito-borne disease.
Routine vector control work in recent years, especially the last 3 years, routine work such as mosquito workers, spraying, indoor control and larvae control has almost stopped to a large extent in most of the states of Sudan, as well as the state of Khartoum, because of the issue of economic and the political situation and security.
Similar to malaria, symptoms of dengue fever include high fever, rash, and muscle and joint pain.
We have no choice but to educate citizens that this disease is spread by the Aedes mosquito, and it is in the clean stored water. There must be care in covering the stored water, such as barrels and jars, by taking care of the water stored and moved during the day.
Citizens are also responding to the outbreak by raising awareness about the disease.
There are people who do not know this disease, its symptoms, or how to deal with it. It is the responsibility of the Ministry of Health because it is entrusted with educating people, guiding them and educating them about the symptoms and providing prevention before treatment.
Sudan's Ministry of Health says it has provided teams for field treatment in Khartoum as investigations continue in surrounding areas.
And you have been watching the World Today News Bulletin on Eyeafrica TV. And from that health-related report there, of course, coming from Sudan, now eventually bring this news edition to an end. But for more details on this and other stories, as always, as ever, you can visit on our website on eyeafrica.tv. The World Today News Bulletin will return on Monday. But on behalf of the entire production team, many thanks for the pleasure of your company, and we wish you happy independence in advance and a pleasant weekend ahead. Bye for now.